Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. I love you all. My name is miahtheking, and silence is golden. Unless you have kids, then silence is suspicious. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released on Steam called Blacksmith Simulator. It's about what you'd expect, a life sim while playing as a blacksmith. Developed by Yuzu Games and published by Creative Forge Games. Released not in early access and selling for $16. Which seems like a kind of odd amount to me, but alright, whatever. And no, your ears are not deceiving you. And no, my recording did not break. There's just no sound and no music here on the title screen, so that's a great sign. That's a good sign of what we're getting into. So what even is this game anyway? Well, it's a blacksmithing simulator. That's it. No story, no plot, no reason, no immersion, no anything. All I know is that in this blacksmith simulator game, I'm a dwarf, which I actually like that idea. Now then, as always, let's go into the good and the bad, starting off first with the good. So the first positive point is the idea. However, the idea has been pretty much done to death. The reason why it's still a positive, though, is pretty simple. It's because the world is desperate for a great blacksmithing game, and anyone trying to give us that is already onto something. I mean, sure, there are tons of blacksmith games out there, but none of them are great. So that's what we're all looking for. So whenever one releases, it's like, okay, well, maybe this one. So that's why it's a good thing. Playing as a dwarf on a mountain, who is rumored to be the best blacksmith on all the land, that's a pretty cool idea. Now, the game doesn't exactly say that. It'd be cool if they did, but they do kind of say that that's basically where you're heading. So, you know, that's actually really cool. The setup is actually really interesting. Next up for the positives is the gameplay, but that'll also be in the negatives. The overall idea is fairly simple. They didn't overcomplicate it. Grab ore, smelt ore, bang it into shape, cool it, temper it, and put it together, sharpen it, and sell it. With a bunch of different upgrades you can unlock, mining you can partake in, and other upgrades you can get, stuff like that. Overall, it's at least got a slightly addictive quality to it that any good simulator needs to witness any kind of success. So at least it's got that kind of going for it. But that's it. That's pretty much all I got to say positively about the game. Now I got to go into the negatives. But before we get into that, a quick word from our sponsors. Thank you very much for sticking through the video this long. I know, it's been a solid 2 minutes. And if you happen to be wondering why you even bothered, then perhaps it's for the funny one-liners that I put at the beginning of every video. Or perhaps it's because I'm one of the few reviewers out there who can help you figure out if you need a game in 10 minutes or less. Don't believe me? Then stick around and find out. I'll prove it. Also, if you like the video or find it informative, then consider subscribing and hitting that bell. The bell, see, lets you know when I'm putting out new content. And I do so a lot and at very random times because I do it when games release. And I also do it with very random games. I don't just have a particular genre, except horror. I don't do horror. Anyway, you never know when I'm going to review a game or a genre you've been missing out on your whole life. So make sure to hit that bell and stay informed so it helps you out, all right? That's all I'm trying to do. All right, so now we got to go into the negatives. Now, the first negative for me was the sound design. In pretty much every facet you could think of, the game failed in its sound design. At the title screen, there was no music, which I talked about already, but there's also no music anywhere else in the game to be found, which is an automatic negative for me. Then you've got the sound effects, which are laughably pathetic. I mean, listen to what it sounds like when a dwarf typically would bang on an anvil, or hell, any blacksmith would typically bang on an anvil. This is what it would sound like. This is what you would typically hear when you're listening to a blacksmith work. This is about average. This isn't like super awesome, but this is about average. However, in the game, this is what we get. It's laughably ridiculous and out of place, as are the rest of the sound effects in this game. The only thing the game kinda does right in regards to sound is the partial voice acting of the random NPCs that are scattered about, and they really are random. I'll go into that here in just a second. But they could be AI or pre-generated or whatever, and not really worth much effort, so I still consider it a negative. The point is, the sound quality in the game was awful, but those NPCs, like, they're so random and so weird and so out of place. There's like a heavily armored elf just sitting there for some reason. There's this random woman who just walks around the forest, I guess, like you're on an abandoned mountaintop somewhere, and there's all these people just chilling about. It doesn't make any sense. So it's just, that's already a little weird. Next up is the graphics. It looks ugly. I mean, I'm sure you can already tell how bad it looks, with horrible contrast, detail, color choices, and blending, awful shadows. I mean, overall, it was just awful to look at. Even the damn swords on the wall look absolutely awful, and yet they're supposed to be the showcase for the awesomeness that you can later achieve in the game. But if the later end swords are going to look this pathetic, then I have absolutely zero motivation to push myself forward to be able to craft them. I mean, just look at how bad these are. Come on. Next up for the negatives is the gameplay. Told you it would be here. And while playing, I swear, I kept thinking to myself how the devs must have decided to create this game. It's like they asked themselves, what do gamers hate? Well, they hate tedium repetitive chores. Let's throw that in there. They hate mindless going back and forth. Let's make sure to add that. They hate unclear instructions, so let's make sure that's in there too. They hate ease of access and things that make sense, so let's also make sure it's designed the opposite of that as well. Now, let me give you some examples. You have to walk all the way down to the beach to the mine to grab some ore so that you can smelt it and turn it into weapons, which, okay, fine, fair enough, but you can only carry one at a time. So what, your dwarf only has one hand or something? The lift that's supposed to make your life easier, well, it can only hold 3 ores at a time. This giant piece of machinery can only carry 3 tiny ores at a time. Useless. I'm in my 30s and out of shape and I can carry more than that. Like, what is the deal with that? This is machinery designed for it. What about the constantly going back and forth to the well to fill up your bucket so you can partially fill up your cooling station, not all the way, only partially, and use it to cool down the molds in the molds in the furnace? How about not making enough money to progress? Probably the biggest problem. You have to spend money on a hilt, a pommel, and a crossguard. Spend 50 gold doing it. Then you go back to craft the weapon, sell it for a total of 20 gold profit. Yay! Oh, but here's the kicker. If you try to do more than 1 order at a time, guess what? You only get paid for the 1 order. So if you try to do 2 at once, you only get paid for 1, and you actually lost money. You lost 50 gold. So never do more than 1 order at a time. No. Like I said, they don't like ease of access. They don't like making your life easier in this game. It's only 1 at a time. The devs didn't quite think that one through. What about inventory? Nope. What about the damn user interface? Nah, we ain't got one of those here either. What about checking the specifications on your orders? Nope, can't do that either. Only if you talk to the guy who requested the sword. So when you go down to grab the materials, you can't check what it is you even need. You gotta memorize it. What about in the beginning where you don't have the tempering station unlocked or the sharpening stone unlocked? Well, guess what? That means every single order you complete loses you reputation. Oh, and they cost 300 gold plus each to upgrade, and since you only make 20 gold per order, you're going to be grinding out here for a long time, which means by the time you finally do get enough gold to unlock one of those stations, your reputation is already absolute crap. The actual smithing mechanic is fine enough, I suppose. It works as you'd expect with clear instructions, so that's nice. But overall, the gameplay was more of an annoying chore than anything else due to everything outside of smithing. Next up is the tutorial. It didn't really teach me enough. It didn't teach me about the upgrading station, about how to upgrade stations or whatnot. I had to figure that out on my own. It didn't really tell me about the specifics of reputation and had to figure that out on my own. It was almost good, but it just wasn't quite there. Not really much to say on it because the game was fairly simple. I mean, at least it had one, but it wasn't even that good of one. So I was still confused half the time. So that's why it's in the negatives. I could go on to the user interface, but what user interface? I don't freaking see one here. The limited bit of UI that I do see is super simplistic and kind of unnecessary, so whatever. And last is the price tag. I mean, for a game this low quality, while not even in freaking early access, offering us nothing new or innovative and as badly designed as it is, fuck, man, this is a $10 game at most. It's so empty, so lacking, so poorly put together that I just can't support anything more than $10. Alright, I'm done talking about it. Here are my final thoughts. The game had an average idea with a quirky spin, being a dwarven blacksmith, but the overall idea of being a blacksmith has been done to death, so it's not exactly original. I mean, if you want to do a blacksmith simulation game, then you need to go all out. Like, here's what people want, here's what people would love, a game that has a simple but in-depth blacksmithing mechanics with lots of upgrades and lots of options and lots of improvements that focuses on more than just smithing weapons, with politics, with war, with logic, with dialogue, with choices. I mean, how many times have people said, I want a blacksmithing game where there are stakes or risks or meaning or a plot or a purpose? I mean, I want to play a game where I'm a dwarven blacksmith in a large, fancy dwarven city under the mountains where if I don't forge enough high quality weapons for the army, then they'll get defeated over and over again. And if that keeps happening, eventually I lose the game because our kingdom gets destroyed. Then I want a mighty hero to show up in the middle of this and actually give me the resources to craft him a legendary sword, because if you have ever played any RPG ever in your life, then you know that you are always the one who has to bring the ingredients to the blacksmith for him to create something for you. They never go out and get it themselves. I don't know why all these blacksmithing games are just like, oh, you gotta go get it yourself. That makes absolutely no sense. So while you're forging those crossbows for the king's royal army, you've also got the hero who needs his legendary hammer to be crafted, while your wife, who you met and married in the game, wants you to forge horseshoes for her brother, which if you finish in time gets you relationship points with her, and after 9 hours of in-game time you finally achieve enough reputation and money to move your shop to the royal quarters where the rich people live. From there, you start to build a name for yourself and you get a fancier shop, and more heroes come to ask for your legendary weapons, and the king himself becomes a friend due to the dialogue choices and quests you've chosen throughout your playthrough, and he wants an epic king blade to show off at his coronation, which you're invited to. You get drunk at the coronation and pass out because you chose to take that extra drink, which caused you to lose reputation, but it doesn't matter because the king's sword is ready today for the coronation, and that's the kind of blacksmithing game that I want. Wow, I kind of went off on a tangent there and made this video far longer than it needed to be. Let's end it quick. Back to the review. If it wasn't obvious, I do not recommend this game. I mean, it's kind of harmless at $16 being a cheap little game, but still, it's just not worth it. It's not worth your money, and it's not worth your time. There's nothing exceptional here. There's nothing here good enough to warrant any investment at all. With lackluster gameplay that doesn't make any sense and in fact is built to annoy the gamer rather than make them comfortable and have fun, lacking in ambiance and good sound design, lacking a purpose or a point, lacking anything that would make this game worth your money and time, and I just honestly think, in my opinion, it's a crap game. You should pass on it. Alright? The absolute only thing it has going for it is that it never crashed or froze on me. Yay. So, that's all the time I got for this one. Not much else to say. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. If you found the video entertaining or at least informative, then please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. Thanks again for watching, and I can't wait to see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.